What is going on? I'm testing a couple things out. See, that's too much. That's enough. Mystery, aura, in the buff. We live, stealing a line from my old friends Chris Denman and Travis Terrell, who once had a very good radio show called We Are Live. And the reason it was good was because it wasn't like any show. It wasn't like we're gonna talk sports and all sports, or just movies, or just Snickers, not a little Milky Way, not a little Nestle Crunch. We are going to be getting into, though, here's the outline. Pay attention. After our cold, hot opening coming up, bad drivers will be attacked first. And there's a lot of reasons that people are bad out there, but one reason, at least every time I go out, happens at least twice, maybe 3 times a week, or 7. We'll get into that. One particular thing, I think we can all agree on it. These are my notes. I didn't break up with a woman with a post-it note like some dickheads did. This is just my notes. Second, we're going to get into movie reviews. Prey. Is the new Predator film worth watching, or should we just go watch the original Arnold? Stick around or click on Hulu. And don't give Hulu crap for not putting that in theaters. That's 20th Century Studios. It just said, hey, we'll release this on streaming because it's easy. We'll get into that, though. We'll review it and we'll discuss whether it should have been in theaters or whether it's okay on streaming, because that's the question these days and moving forward with any movie and any TV show. Okay, not TV show, even though I can see a future where they put TV shows on in a theater once a week. Can you imagine if there was a Seinfeld this coming Thursday at Ronnie's? But after that, we're going to get into Better Call Saul. It's going to be a lot of TV and a little bit of movies. That's the appetizer and the entree section. And then we're going to get into that Cardinal loss last night. After winning 7 straight, the Cardinals lost 16-5. An emphatic loss at Coors Field, which happens about every other game there. But let's just get into it first before we really light up any baseball teams or get in any movies or TV shows, even in TV shows that are ending in less than a week. Bad drivers, okay? Make sure I have this thing. Bad drivers do this thing very often. Let's say I'm making a turn. If I'm coming from anywhere in my neighborhood and I just want to go the regular way home, I go down Hampton south to Holly Hills and I make a left. And I live, I'm not going to tell you right where I live, but let's just say that's the area I live. I mean, look, you've seen me. I'm not trying to hide. uh, I think we're, for better or worse, one of the most recognizable families in this neighborhood, and we just kind of be ourselves. But I have to make a left onto that street. I have to make a left off of Daytona Light, which is what we call Hampton Avenue most of the day. Making a left there, the car coming north on Hampton is going to do what? What do you think makes me mad? That they're going to go really slow? No, they give me all the time in the world to make my turn. But if that car is even at Finkman, which is the next street south of my street, I'm making a left. But why do cars speed up? I know why, but let's just think about it logically. What if my car all of a sudden just died in the middle of the road and he's going too fast to stop? He's going to clip me. When maybe if he hadn't sped up, if he or she, even though it's always a he, I'm going to go ahead and say it. It's a guy that does this shit. He wasn't picked for his junior varsity starting rotation, and he's been slamming every baseball lineup since. I mean, come on. It's guys. You can see them. I mean, they're racing up on you. And it's just like, why? Something goes wrong. Do you really want to collide? No matter whose fault it is. I mean, one person's insurance is going up, somebody's cutting a check, but it's going to be a long day. And it's not really a hot day, but this is a very rare 48-hour period where I'm looking at the clock, 3:19 on an August 10th afternoon in St. Louis, and it's little humidity. It's still out there. I mean, there's still moisture in the air. It's the summer. It's not hot. It's 76 and mostly sunny. That's insane. But if it's a hot day, it's going to be a long day. You're going to be sitting out there, cops are going to come. you're each going to generate stories that are untrue in some way. So just don't. Somebody's trying to make a turn in front of you and they have you beat and they're already almost in the intersection. Just keep going the same speed, even slow up. I understand we don't want to slow up because we can put ourselves in their position. That's what you got to do. Put yourself in their position. I mean, we're all going to go, oh, don't do it. But then they do it. And then we just go on. The worst thing that people can do, let's flip it. We are in the other position. The person trying to make this quick turn is not so quick. So there's the flip. It's not good when you speed up to try to make the turn or, to make him or her kind of, oh man, they got to speed up and get all worried. And then it's not really good when you're trying to make that quick turn. You're kind of pushing it to go slow. Both people should deserve a visit from the Predator. And I'm not talking about the 1 and 3 and 4 and 6, whatever alien ones they made. I want the guy in this new one. Prey on Hulu. It's on a streaming channel. We are in 2022, folks. It's a good argument to have, though. It's a good complaint. It's never a bad complaint if you're a movie fan to want a great movie to be seen on a big screen. I mean, Remains of the Day, a very talky film. People might want to see that in a theater. Anthony Hopkins looks magnificent on a big screen. But this movie featured really no big names. And I think that's maybe one reason that 20th Century Studios, which kind of distributed it, kind of co-distributed with Hulu to the streaming channel. I think that's one reason maybe they didn't. I mean, Amber Mid Thunder, who plays Nara, uh, the lead character, the one that the Comanche tribe member that takes on the Predator. I mean, this is 300 years ago. This is the basic plot. The one in the 80s film against with Arnold and gosh, Carl Weathers, I forgot his name, Bill Duke, Jesse Ventura. You know, that wasn't the first one to come to town. And this takes place 300 years ago. I think 1719 is the exact year. The Comanche owned that land. It was still their land. And a little spaceship drops off a Predator, and he's not a Tom Cruise sized one. He's Shaq sized one. He's a big boy, and it comes down to the Comanche using what they have against this alien. And that's the movie, folks. Dan Trachtenberg, I may have messed up his last name. He did Cloverfield. He did, he does these movies, these science fiction. I know he's a big sci-fi guy. And for people that think I don't like sci-fi, Holy L, yeah, I'm making sure I remember the 8-minute mark. Took a shot at Holy L, saying you don't like sci-fi. I like the Predator. I mean, the Predator is like one of my, and even Predator 2 to an extent is okay. The one with Adrian Brody, Predators. I mean, how many times can you say that word before your mouth just gets tired? But this is sci-fi. I mean, Cloverfield Lane, that was sci-fi. I mean, that's what this director does. He doesn't use these new modern CGI where you can really tell. He never overdoes it. He even underdoes it to where you think that could have been a little bit better. But I prefer that. I don't need when the alien comes out of his camouflage or when he goes into it. That's his signature thing here. Is that that's kind of what makes him big and deadly? Is that he can wield a few blades coming out of his forearm or out of a little weaponry on his arm, and he can fight, but he can also just go camouflage. And you just don't know where he's at, and he makes and I would just be running until I couldn't run anymore, and then it'd be a quick fight. It wouldn't be like you one ugly motherfucker. In this movie, though, there is no Arnold, and I'm glad he didn't show up. I know for whatever reason, 300 years ago, he'd come back, he'd come out of the woods as the Terminator. Oh, wrong movie. But this one picks up really, really quickly. And I'm not saying that he shows up and they go at it, in a fight and right away. The whole setting is set up, the aesthetic. And that's the fancy word for saying what it feels like, what it looks like. Is it look realistic? But does it look cinematic? Because that's what we want. We want that blend of cinema and realism because we know something that can kind of ground it, but then something that can kind of keep it like, oh man, what if like me, I'm sitting in my house in a nice little neighborhood, Princeton Heights, and I'm thinking, What if that fucker came down the street? I mean, what am I gonna do? My little chihuahua is gonna be even just bark at him and he just kick it, over to Illinois. But the movie picks up. We get to know Nora, and I'm wanting to think her name is Nora or Naru, but I think it's Nora. And she is kind of like our protagonist. She is the one at the center of the story. She's the she's the one the member of this Comanche. She's younger, which means she has a brother that's going to be a warrior. And I forgot the phrase they use, Comanche, about your first big kill or your kind of thing that turns you into a warrior or someone in their First Nations tribe that you can just they look up to. And she hasn't had that yet. Uh, Nara. She wants to have that chance. She wants to have that hunt, whether it's against a lion or a tiger or any kind of creature. And she gets a creature. It's just not a lion. It's not an animal that we know. And for them, 300 years ago, they didn't know this thing at all. It shows up, and she can already tell the sky looks a little different after it drops him off, and he's rumbling around the jungle already. And eventually, their paths cross. But I like the way, and this could be a spoiler alert. I like the way that they kind of, in a way, he didn't just go after the human beings, this alien. He kind of starts picking off animals. He wants to find the greatest game, the greatest challenge. But in this first time they're hitting the planet, they don't know what the greatest challenge is. So he takes on a dog. He takes on one of the best scenes in the movie. And all I'll say is that it's the predator against a bear. It's like instead of Leo, it's a predator, and it's a very tall one, and they go at it in a little lake or river, and it's just fantastic. And that's many scenes in this movie. Some ones that are action packed, especially with Amber Mid Thunder, who reminded me of the Native American character. And I think her name starts with an N too. It was in the show called Banshee, where she was the member of the tribe that was kind of trying to take down the local Amish gangster, and her and Burton just have this knockdown, drag out brawl. I got a lot of vibes from that character, played by at least the actress name I know, Odette Annable. She was the actress that played it really well. So I got a lot of vibes from that show when I saw the lead character here, Mid Thunder. Just I don't. I mean, she's been in other movies, but she is the star. I mean, there's other people in the cast, which is comprised mostly of Native Americans, First Nations people. There's not really that, let's just put an American in this movie for whatever reason, but I like that, the middle of the movie, another party shows up and kind of it's all of a sudden they kind of join the fight. There's hunters of all kind, but the fascinating part of this movie is that the Comanche, they use every part of their surroundings, whether it's a tree or some rope made and twined and twisted from whatever material they find. I mean, they use the woods like their own battlefield, and that plays a big part when seemingly, this alien drops into somebody else's ballpark. And that's the finale. That it doesn't mess around, but it doesn't speed up either. It's a great score. It reminded me of Last of the Mohicans, a rousing score mixed with kind of a good sci-fi kind of score from any kind of movie like that. More like the original Predator mixed with the Last of the Mohicans. I just really liked it. I'm going to watch it again. But when you're a film critic, you have so many movies ahead of you you're thinking about. You have links for that. It's kind of like when you watch one twice, even though you've reviewed it. And I haven't written an official review of Prey. This is kind of like the first online review, other than a couple of tweets. But it feels like we're stealing one whenever we do that. So watch Prey, though. I think fans of the series, fans of the Arnold film, the Predators cinematic saga will like this movie, and it'll make you want more. I mean, let's just say you have to know there's going to be always room left open for another chapter, and in this case, I would invite it. With the Arnold film, that was a movie that I could tell you it didn't need a sequel. I mean, he made it out of there. He isn't going to go back. That thing's not going to come to New York or California. They're not going to do that. So We didn't really need another story, but this is the first one. Even the Brody film I thought was just kind of fun. And then the Boyd Holbrook film was terrible. I don't even remember the name, probably for good reason. I don't think I watched half of it before I said, crap, I'm turning on the Arnold film. I'm not sticking around. First movie since the Arnold film, I think 84, that I can say this one was kind of necessary. I mean, these two can almost be next to each other. Forget the other ones, but definitely worth watching. And it's on Hulu. And what I wish, do I wish it would have been in theaters? Sure. But it's just, no. If it's Netflix started something when they could have a place for older movies, new movies, and then their own movies and their own shows, and release movies with big actors and big directors consistently and win Oscars, and have movies release in theaters and make a little money there. They set up a whole new ballpark. Okay. The old Hollywood sign was ripped off, pulled out of the ground, and a new one was put in, and there's a Netflix sign right behind it because they reshaped the game before they came along. And before a movie, if you recall, Mary J. Blige won for Mudbound. That was Netflix's first firm step into the ground saying, hey, we have a big cast. We had musicians, singers, and Mary, and then you had Garrett Hedlund. Breaking Bad. Here's a deep tease for the next segment. I like to call the Entree, the Better Call Saul. We're going to discuss it. Second to last one played, last one coming up. But Mike Ehrmantraut has a small role in Mudbound. Really, when you look it up on Netflix, the poster art had Jonathan Banks there for a while. I was like, I'm surprised. I'm sure it's gotten hundreds of clicks from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad fans. Both of those series are on Netflix, by the way. But let's just get into it. Let's get into it. I think the ending argument is that Hulu, they got Prey, and it's a great movie. But yes, I wish I could have seen that in the theater. Like, I want to buy it on a DVD and ask one of my theater buddies after hours one night, can you put this on? But that'll be at a later date. But definitely give it a watch. Sci-fi fan, Predator fan, Beast against Human fan, give it a look, and you might come away with a newfound appreciation for the series and for Dan, the director, and Dan Trachtenberg, I think is his name. He's should keep an eye on him after this one, and also for Amber Midthunder. And stealing another line, she reminded me of a character from Banshee. Nola, I think was her name in Banshee, Odette Annabelle. This woman who takes on the alien has all the thunder she needs. But let's get into It's All Good, man. Better Call Saul wrapping up its 6-season run. I think it now without checking. I don't want to check. I want to go, hold on. And then I'm not on this page and I'm looking like it's whatever, how many seasons. That's the gift that's going to be waiting for you. So, and look, I mean, there's not much more we can say about this other than that we knew this last one was going to be about Kim Wexler and really what went down and what happened. And we get a visit from her and Jimmy in multiple years and time periods. So, not really time periods, but parts of this show's universe. Like, we see, especially in the last couple episodes, we see, you know, Bob Odenkirk's character in the Breaking Bad mode. He looks just like him, and thanks to the makeup and the hair and the costume, you believe it. And the office with the fake little towers and the little scripture from the justice and everything like that. But it's it's the kind of show that makes you want so much more than we're going to be getting out of it, and that's a great thing because Vince Gilligan and in Better Call Saul's place, who really has been kind of shouldered and brought down the road by Peter Gould, who's worked with Vince Gilligan over the course of those 6 seasons. But you get Bob Odenkirk, and you get, again, in this last episode, Kim Wexler, we see where she went after she broke it off. And of course, spoilers, man. If you see it in the title, you know we're going to be talking about it. I'm just going to go, it was a good episode. Well, then what am I doing here? But we see what happened after she left him after their debacle with Howard and Lalo. I mean, she had to get out of there. So we see what she's become, a housewife in Albuquerque a housewife in Florida these parts of Florida they make look like Albuquerque in this episode. Because of course it's all in black and white. Whenever it's in black and white, we know we are in the very, very, very present. It's when he is Gene. I swear, man. I know who that is. That's a cat that just scared me out of my moment. That's probably the highlight, the 20 minute mark where I get scared by my cat because we are leaning into dinner time. So as we wrap this around, you know, in the present day, he's not Saul, he's not Jimmy, he's Gene, who manages a Cinnabon and a mall. And of course, this season, and I think in some of the great episodes, and I'm talking about before this last chunk, because the sixth season was delivered in two different parts. We've only gotten bits and clips and small little instances with Gene in the modern day. He's working in Nebraska, middle of nowhere. But then this last few episodes, he kind of gets a little hint for his old ways, slipping Jimmy, Saul Goodman, kind of using what he knows about the law to help thieves, including himself, get away with certain things. He knows what they can do, he knows what they can't. And we see in the last two episodes, where he uses this guy who saw him at the mall, who recognized him. So he basically conned his mom and conned him. And in this latest instance, he just crashes a cab car in front of a parked cop car where two cops are having a break and eating their food. He thinks they're looking at him like he's just a cab guy pulled over on the side of the road. But in the house right next to his car where he's pulled over is Odenkirk's Gene in there taking watches and taking pictures of a guy's financial information. That's the latest scheme that they've been pulling. And we kind of get the idea that this thing could all end. Spoiler alert, this is just what I think. It's going to end with him in jail. And it's a fate that I wanted to see on Ray Donovan. I always wanted to see Ray, good or bad, anti-hero. I wanted to see him do some jail time, man. He does too many bad things. He's too sad. He's too mad. Got to put that guy in a cell and just let him bang around metal. But it's something that, spoiler alert, that we actually saw, at least for the time being, or a portion of time in HBO's Barry, where you see Bill Hader's character he gets caught. And if you don't watch that show, and you should want to watch it now, you should want to see, what do you mean it's caught? Because you'll spend the first 2, 3 seasons wanting to know how, because it's a great show. But it could end with Saul, Jimmy, Gene, whatever, getting caught. Because we know in the preview for next week's last episode, we hear him calling essentially for the late Robert Forster, who played that kind of the guy who gave you a new life. If the vacuum store worker, manager, kind of a deadbeat kind of location and store, kind of like where the Cinnabon, where Gene's working today. We hear him calling that Hoover Mac and those certain words that means you need a new life. But we can't tell because we see that old beat up car he used to drove in a ditch, and we're not sure what time period we're in. And I want to think we're in the Breaking Bad, and that's where he got out of there. But who knows? With Vince Gilligan, who is writing and directing, I think these final two, if not Peter Gould, could be doing one of those things. But next week's going to be great, and these have been an hour and 20 minutes, but that's with commercials, so right around an hour. So they've been about 15 to 20 minutes extra, but just great stuff. But before really moving on, it's not so great and not as good. And these days, I'll be honest, I choose Better Call Saul over watching these guys, are the Cardinals. And it isn't like they're not worth watching. If you're addicted to baseball and Cardinal St. Louis person, you're going to be watching all the time. But they won 7 straight. They won, I think, 9 of 10, and then they lost last night in Colorado to the Rockies, 16-5, to a not so great Rockies team. That's not so bad at home because they play there a lot, and it's a hitter's ballpark, which means a team always has a chance. But the Cardinals got bum rushed. Miles Michaelis gives up. I think he gave up 6 runs and 14 hits. He gave up a lot. Gave a bomb of a home run. I mean, a 3-run crack by CJ Cron, who's just got all of that. and then some other singles and, dying quail. I mean, they were some weak hits, but that home run wasn't weak. And the Cardinals made a late surge. Paul DeYoung hit another home run. I think he's hit three now since he's been back, or maybe he's hit four. Got to double check that. The shortstop's doing well, and that's all we need him to do: hit for power, play good shortstop, don't strike out every other at bat. You're doing good. Keep your trade value up, keep your value up. So, but 16-5, people freak out over one loss. It's one loss. You lost to the Rockies. Your starting pitcher who's putting on a pretty good season, probably not Cy Young, but he's at Miles having a good year. You got beat up. That's it. They're like, oh my gosh, it was bad to start him. Like, yeah, and you're gonna not start Wainwright against the Reds? No, you're gonna start him. And so that's how it is, man. They play again tonight, 7:40. They could win, and all this crap is gone. Because then all the sportscasters and radio people, and even me, will go, well, they've now won, 9 out of their last 12 or whatever. So you just are 9 out of the last 11. If they win tonight, they're 9-2 in the last 11 games. So settle down. They're still up on the Brewers, who are still trying to not just have a complete nosedive out of this race. And there'll be games tomorrow until the beginning of October. And if the Cardinals don't mess this up, they'll be playing. They'll be playing into October. And well, that's all I got. Time to go. It's 26 minutes, man. You don't want to see this face for 30 minutes. There's a limit. This podcast episode of In the Buff was brought to you by nobody, because no sponsor. But you know what you do, though? You do a shout out to a local company. I'll do a shout out to Russell's on Macklin. Walk down Macklin, drive down, ride a bike, stop at Russell's, get yourself a croissant, and get yourself maybe some biscuits and a Bloody Mary, and see my friends Farron and Trish and Kevin. They're all sweet people. And if you don't live in St. Louis, you just got to dream about Russell's. Until next time, episode 6 is finished.